Thank you again for joining me. If you haven't heard, there is a tool within Blackboard called Google Assignments. It's an LTI tool, so it's just a built-in tool. This had started out as a beta a few months ago, and once the bugs were out, they made it developed within an LMS. So for us, it's in our Blackboard. I held on to not talking about it too much because we had quite a eventful last couple of semesters, and I just didn't want to, the timing wasn't right. So I know some people have heard about it from other colleagues or just kind of figured it out. So I wanted to take this time to explain exactly what it is and show you how you'd go about implementing it in your course, and also what it looks like from the student view. Because unfortunately, once you put an assignment out there, it's hard to see what the students see. So I wanted to give you that view from my test student account. So we'll get started here and just kind of explain what this is. And I don't necessarily need to show you this little video. Also in the chat, I put the link to these slides if you want to look at it along with me or at a later time. There's a lot of good information. But essentially it's an add-on application to all different LMSs, but in this case, Blackboard. If you're familiar with Google Classroom at all, it's essentially taking the assignments piece from Google Classroom and using it in your LMS now. So if you like the look and feel of sending things, if you've used Google Classroom or just like Docs and Drive, if you use a lot of that, you might find this is really nice and streamlined. So it makes everything kind of compatible with what you're using in Blackboard. And I have quite a few faculty that are starting to get interested in it, or who have originally started to say, hey, what's this Google Classroom? And then when they're given this alternative, they're like, yeah, I want to stay in Blackboard, but I want to use more of that look and feel of Google. So it's pretty neat. It depends on how you want to use it. Also keep in mind that you can use it individually. You don't have to use it all or nothing. One assignment can be as you're normally doing it now in Blackboard, and another assignment can be a Google assignment, right? Or all of your assignments for the rest of your class can be a Google assignment. It's completely up to you. So you're not stuck. When you're in Google Classroom, you're all Google, right? So just keep that in mind. So some features and benefits to keep in mind too. Again, you're dealing with Google, so it's going to streamline very easily with Google Docs, Google Drive, anything you create and your students create, they can simply just attach it. You're able to create, personalized templates. Rubrics, you can create rubrics right in there. You can reuse them. You can save them. If you've created your own rubric in Google Sheets, you can also attach that. And then what most people love is the customizable comment bank, right? There's no copying and pasting, no having to go back. You can actually save your comments in there. I would assume they're somewhat broad, and then you can reuse those over and over. So that's in there as well. Another great feature is using originality reports. So think of that kind of like Turnitin, but it's built in. It actually compares work against billions of sources, including student work within our domain. So it's really a nice built-in feature as well. And you have unlimited assignments in which you turn that on. So what I mean by that is with other types of Google licenses, you're limited to having 3 assignments that you can turn on originality reports. I do this because this is me turning on. But in this case, just so you know, in our license, you are unlimited. So that means, as a practical matter, if you wanted to turn on originality report for every assignment that you built with Google Assignments, you could. Sarah, you raised your hand. Thank you. What's going on?
Is it only the instructor who sees the originality report, or do the students see it?
So this is a great question. Thank you. Students actually get 3 runs at it. So they actually get to turn it on before they send it to you. And I'll show you this. And it will flag everything, tell them what they should change, Then they can edit it, and then they can run it again. And that should be enough, right? But if they needed to, they could do it again. And then when you get it as the instructor, you'll see what's been flagged. What are the big features or benefits that you want to consider if you're going to use this? Again, you do it once in a while, all the time. But those are the things that stick out to people. The look and feel of Google, the simplicity that it interacts with all of the Google products, and the originality reports are unlimited. So what's this process look like? So what happens is you create your assignment as a Google LTI. That's what it looks like on the menu in Blackboard. You can add a rubric, create a rubric, and then enable your originality reports, as well as creating a copy for each student. So what does that mean? I don't know if any of you have children that use Google Classroom at home, but it's the idea of creating something like a Google slide. And you say, I want all of you to do something in this slide. So you need to make a copy for each one of those people, right? It's like a worksheet that you're creating. So you can actually virtually do that here. And so what happens is you then send that out. Students can upload their files. Also know it doesn't have to just be Google. They can upload Google, Microsoft, video files, PDF, the list goes on. So there might be some other types of assignments you want to include where it's going to require them to add something other than a Google Doc. Okay. So once they submit it, they can't edit or comment on that original file. But what happens is Assignments makes a copy of that submitted file, and they actually save it in the student's drive. So I think that kind of answers your question, Misty. The idea that the students will have a copy so they can see what they submitted, but they will no longer be able to edit it after they've submitted it to you, the instructor. And then what happens for the instructor's side of it is they get a copy of the graded file archived into their Google Drive. Does that make sense? Does that answer your question? Kind of, okay. So there's always going to be a copy archived either in as the instructor's drive or as the student. So while the student can't go back and edit, they do have a copy. And once you see how that looks, it will probably make even more sense. So essentially that's what happens. It leaves their hands, but they get a saved copy in their drive. And then of course you can review the submissions, give feedback, comments, and assign grades. And then you can have a copy in your Google Drive. And then because you're using this as built into Blackboard, you also have your grades automatically saved to your Blackboard gradebook. Okay. Once you've graded it, and I'll show you how that goes as well. There's a Get Started guide that I attached here that's really great for answering any additional questions or just wanting to look at it further. So that's on here. And again, I did put a link to these slides right in the chat if you're interested, and they'll also be in the video. Any questions so far? No. Okay. So I'm going to show you what this looks like. I put these in here for the slide just so you have them for further reference, right? It's always great when we talk about it and then I don't know about you, but I go, oh wait, she said what? So these are here for you to look at. I just wanted to give you some screenshots, but I will actually go through and show you what that looks like. So I'm in my Blackboard as an instructor. Don't get confused because I'm going to go between two. And I'm going to use this course. So whatever way you get to your assignments, whatever way you create content is exactly the same way you want to do it here. So for me, I always go to my assignments and I come to this page. Okay, so you're all familiar with this page, the building content, okay, assessments. So you're just going to go to build content. And you're probably just used to doing the ones that you're familiar with, right? Files, items, videos, what have you. If you kind of scroll almost down to the bottom of the page, you have this option that says Google Assignment LTI. Okay, all follow me? Awesome. And you're welcome to do this along with me too, but it might be easier. So once you press that, it's going to actually like kind of transform into Google a little bit. So it needs to process that you have an account. So presumably you would already be logged into your Fitchburg State Google account, and I would recommend that you are just so it doesn't get confused. But if you had more than one course, it would pop up and say more than one account, it would ask which one you wanted to connect with, okay? So this is my Fitchburg State account, so this is, I'm good to go, and I'm gonna press continue. So you'll get this every time too. Very straightforward, right? Total points, due date, title, instructions, up to you. And then this is where I was with the rubric. Create a rubric, reuse, or import. So if you've created a rubric, you always use it from Google Sheets, or if you want to, you can import it. Okay, so you can't import it from other places, but you could from there. So just to give you a quick peek of what that looks like, if I press, okay, new rubric, and so you can use the scoring, and then this is, again, the students will see this as you're grading their assignment. So it's up to you, okay, if you want to use one. I created one, so I'm gonna go back and see if it lets me use it. So here's the one I used earlier. Okay, so again, if you have one that you use for most classes or frequently, or you just want to edit it, here it is. So here's the one that I used earlier. I wanted you to see it. So essentially I did purpose and focus, and I left it like just general, right? So awareness of audience and purpose, if they're proficient, competent, and novice. Self-development of ideas, right? Again, you can make it any way you want, but that was the way I set mine up, and I stopped there because it was just for testing. So in this case, I reused it, okay? But if you didn't want to, you could, again, create a new one, or import one from Sheets. Okay, any questions about that piece? Yeah.
Can I ask just a question about the due date?
Sure.
So does it only allow submission until the due date? Does it allow submission after but flag them as late?
No, it only allows you to put in one due date. So it's not that you won't necessarily get them after, but it will tell you that was past the due date.
That's fine. So it'll still accept assignments, but it will flag them as late.
Correct.
Okay, that's fine.
Yes. So again, or you don't even need to put in a rubric, completely up to you. And then this is the next part I was telling you about, checking plagiarism. Okay, so this is what they call in Google originality reports. So if you turn it on, again, it's just going to do that detection, and it's going to allow your students to run the reports as well. Okay. Then if you had an actual assignment you wanted to attach, okay, so I have an example. What happens is you can see in my assignments, right, all of my past assignments I've created. Here's one that I did, essentially the same thing. Okay, assignments, training, test. So if I go to that, it does all the same thing, brings me back to Google as well, okay? And then it will see. So here's exactly how you would grade it as well, okay? So once you've submitted it and it says, okay, you're good to go, you go back to Blackboard. You're not gonna go to your grade center to grade it. You're going to go to the LTI tool, to the assignment, find your assignment in your list of assignments in Blackboard, and then just select it. So in this case, here's one I did earlier and didn't have any issues. And I don't anticipate you will either. And you can see again what my due date was, what my points were. I have my rubric there. I have a file. So if I'm like, did I turn on originality reports? I can see all that again. Okay. So Allison's student actually submitted something. I can see that here. Okay. And I can also see that in her originality report, there was 3 flagged passages. So a funny story. That's the whole thing was 3 passages. Okay. So I'm just going to go back into my Blackboard here and make sure it gets me as a student. So what I'm showing you now is the student side of things, which you won't traditionally see, okay? But again, if you're like me, it goes into this world and then you're like, well, what do the students see or do? So now I'm logging in as a student to my course, and just like you did, I'm going to go over to my assignments. And because it's in order, I'm going to scroll down to the end and see my test, okay, or whatever you call it. So I'm going to go here, and it's going to do the same thing. It's going to launch me, and it's going to ask me, what account. So here is the test that I did earlier today, and I put a response in there. Okay, so what I did is this. So this was my assignment. Okay, and instead of responding on that doc, I just created my own as the student, and I attached that. That's why it's showing two different things. Do you see what I mean? So this is the sample assignment, which I could have just wrote on, or I attached a separate one, which is this one. Okay, so this is my sample response as the student. Okay, so this is all it looked like. It was nothing fancy. Okay, can you see that? I keep thinking you can see that. Okay, good. And so what happens is once you create, so let's just go ahead and do it so you can see what I'm talking about. So I'm going to add this again, this sample response. Okay, here's my thing I want to send the teacher, the instructor. So once I do that, because I already did it, I can actually run originality report. Okay, so you can see how it can view it because I already did it once, but I'm going to pretend I didn't. So here it says 2 out of 3. Okay, so as a student, I'm alerted. You already ran it once, you should have fixed it. Now you're on your second report and you have 3 total. Okay, so they have 3 chances to run it, which I think is pretty great. So if by chance the second time they still miss it, because in Allison's student's case, she's gonna miss it, she has that third option. Okay, so as a student, I get my assignment, I do the same thing, I attach it, and then I wanna run my report. I'm just going to show you what this looks like. Maybe it'd still be in another window, of course. So here's my summary, okay? And I can look at the count or I can look at a percentage, right? So there's 38% flagged content, 51% cited or quoted content. I can actually go to the web matches and see exactly what was taken and where. Okay, so in this case, I probably should edit that, right? I should make it so I'm not plagiarizing it. So it's telling me, if it was 1%, maybe I don't have to worry, right? But this is pretty high, so I need to edit it. I can see exactly where this came from, right? So there's no reason why they shouldn't be using it, even just to double, triple check, right? Like let's check and see, because what the teacher's going, right? The instructor's going to run it. Why wouldn't they? So there's that. So once I see that, I can edit. Okay, so now I can go back to my response and say, okay, you remember this part that was all, a problem? I should probably edit that. And I can go right in there and edit right then and there. Take it out, right? Whatever it is. This, I'm going to delete this response because I don't want I haven't submitted it yet. Do you see what I'm saying? I haven't submitted it. Well, supposedly I did, but I hadn't submitted it. I'm just going to run my report. And now I'm going to, resubmit or put in a new file now that I've checked out my report and I've edited it. Okay. So this is kind of what the student sees once they've submitted. So they can run the report 3 times and then they can go ahead and press submit, or in this case, resubmit, either way. Okay. Any questions on that? Make kind of sense? Okay. So once the student has submitted something, right? You have to, like I told you before, you have to go back into, whatever you're ready to grade, you go back into your assignment that you created in your assignment list. It'll pull up the LTI tool. And then you'll see exactly what you were seeing earlier, which is who has submitted what. Okay, so you can see Allison was assigned something, and then she submitted something. And I, in this case, is 0 flagged passages because I took it back. Indication that says flagged passages, just like the student saw, it looks exactly the same. And you could see where it was and so forth. So outside of just the originality report piece, here's where you can do your grading. Here's the rubric that I was using, right, that I created. I can press, this person is, competent. So it automatically gives them the 20 out of 25 because that's what I put in my rubric and so forth. So here's a good example though. What if, like the first Allison, she submits this very plagiarized piece even though she was supposed to run her report 3 times. You know, obviously my rubric no longer applies, right? Like you're not even gonna get 5 points. So you can change this amount manually, okay? So you know, you could put a 0 if you needed to, okay? I would assume that most times you won't have that case and you'll just be able to grade it based off of your rubric. You can write overall feedback here. And then up here, you're grading, and then there's this little comment bank. So I added a few little ones here. This is a great start, right? Great job. But if you had more substantial comments, you could do that. So what I suggest is to get started with this is if you do already have comments somewhere, right? If it's a blackboard or you have them in a piece of paper or a sheet, you should go ahead and manually add them in. And then once they're there, you're good to go. You follow what I'm saying? Because then I can copy this, go back to my student, and now I can just paste it in. So it's in my bank, I just need to copy it over. But until that's built up, you know, you're gonna need to be manually putting them in. But you can easily copy and paste comments into this comment bank, right? So add to bank, I could just, you know, if I had one from a Google Doc, right? If I had a list, I could just copy, paste it in here and add it. And you can also write them in, you know, I just want to save you as much time as possible. Once it's in there once, you can use it, you know, as long as you want. So it's there for every single paper assignment that I'm about to grade, okay? And then you can return this paper or this assignment, excuse me, when you're done grading it. So you've got these 2 options. What's also nice is that if you have multiple assignments to grade, right, you can actually keep going and grading them and return all of them at once. I don't know. I'm sure some people might have a preference, but if you kind of just want to keep going along and not press return every time, you can do that as well. Okay, so see how it says return this submission, return multiple submissions. Okay, so you can all feedback, but what if this is their first draft, right? Hypothetically, and they get 25 points for submitting it. You want to give them some feedback, so you might want to just add a comment in here that says, and I do that just by this little plus sign that kind of hovers here, and I can give a comment. So I'm not editing their paper for them, I'm not doing it for them, but I'm giving the option of them to say, hey, you know, this looks good, or you really need to try X, Y, and Z. You know, so I can comment, so that way because you can see up here, see this green, I'm in suggesting mode, right? So automatically I'm in suggesting mode. So when you and I are working on a doc, we're editing it, right? We're directly editing it. We don't probably want to do that in this case, unless you have a reason to. You might be wanting to edit with the student directly. But if you're looking to just give them feedback and guidance, you want to suggest. So you're letting them know, hey, I would make this edit, or this looks good, but you need to, you know, talk to the audience more in this section. And then what they can do is they can take that and develop it into their assignment or paper, you know, as well. So there's lots of places for conversation and a continued comment area, right? You've got the comment bank to give your overall feedback. Good job, well done, whatever. But if you want to give specific feedback and comments where you're conversating, or maybe you want to get in their head a little bit, right? Like, what were you thinking here? What was your basis for this argument? It opens up that conversation, and it's just between the 2 of you. So you can do that as well. Okay, so think of it again as the same functionality as a Google Doc, and in that sense. But I always like the idea that you can give feedback and give guidance without doing the work for them. So, you know, it really depends on what your goal is and what the intent is for this assignment. If it's a paper, or if you're just merely grading the end result, then you would just probably use an overall feedback area. Okay. The other nice thought too is, especially with an assignment that's multiple pages or multiple pieces of information, you might want to stop periodically and provide a little bit of feedback as you go. Right? It's kind of like your red pen, right? We just want to add a little bit more information and not just one big great job. So once you're ready to go, you can again continue to grade and then return them all at once. or return just this one. So it's going to let you know, okay, you want to, in this case, it's saying I'm updating the grade. Once I do that, the student will be notified. So I'm going to go ahead and return. Okay. Let me get back over here. Whoops, sorry, wrong one. I'm just going to go back to the student view so you can see what I'm talking about here. Okay. So the student can do the same thing, go back into that assignment, and they'll see any of the feedback you provided, updates, and so forth. Okay, so you can see my grade here has changed, right? Because the instructor just changed it. If I had any, overall feedback, here's my overall feedback. So there's no guessing, there's no look, they can see let me move this up for you. They can see what I posted from my very small rubric as well. I think it's just really nice that it's all there in one fell swoop. And then if I wanted to resubmit, you could do that as well. So that's the basic look and feel, if I didn't lose you, of what it looks like from both ends of it. Once you are done creating your assignment from the instructor side of things, then you're done for the time being, essentially, until you're seeing my slides again. Okay, good. So as I showed you, you're just logging in and then you're creating your assignment. So I just put in some more info here to guide you, but it's nice and it's like Google. One good thing of Google is they are pretty self-explanatory, right? It allows you to, just brings you through. And then I also, again, gave you some views of the students. So they would see their test, right? They would see their assignment. They would see where they could add a file, okay? Or they could create a Google Doc or something right from here. They could respond to your Google Doc. Then they can run their originality report, and then it will come up. Once it's gone, it'll go like a percentage, and then we'll come up and say, view it just like I showed you earlier, and then they can edit from there. Once they've done it, and if they've exhausted their 3 originality reports, they can submit. And then once it submits to you, you'll see what's flagged, if anything. And just like they did, you'll see the same exact thing. Where it was coming from, what internet source, what pieces of it, right? And so forth. And then you can choose to decide whether that's an issue or not. And then once you've graded it, they'll get the same screen, except the difference will be they'll have a grade and they'll see what you've done on the rubric, if you have a rubric, okay? So the student also, sometimes does that to me. The student also gets kind of a, you're all set, page when they've submitted it to you, okay? So it says, so that's nice for students because they like that confirmation page. Okay, it went off to my teacher, my instructor. Here's what I sent them, right? Here's my sample assignment, but here's my response. And what if 2 minutes later, they're like, oh wait, I just attached the wrong thing. They can unsubmit it, assuming that you did not grade it yet, and resubmit, okay? Doesn't mean they can edit anything because you graded it. It just means, right, like the emails we sent out, we go, oh, I forgot that attachment. They submitted it and forgot to attach their work or whatever. They can unsubmit it, resubmit it to you, and it doesn't necessarily involve you or concern you, but it is something they have that ability to do. Okay, so that's kind of their congratulations piece. And just to give you a little better view, again, this is that originality report description, kind of what you'll see, okay? And then this is your view, as we saw a few minutes ago. And that's really the basis of it. It really walks you through all the steps. Even if you just want to start with like a little test one to see how it goes. The main thing is that students will obviously need to be using their Fitchburg State Google account, which should be connected anyway once they log in. And then they can see whatever they submitted will be in their Google Drive. I'll show you what I mean by that as well. Let me just switch windows here for us. The problem is I never know which one I'm opening. Alrighty. So, can you see? All right, so you can see here. So if I went to I'm in my student account, and if I went to my Google Drive, I could see everything that I submitted. And that's how I can, so here's my sample response, okay, right up here. Here's my sample assignment that the teacher submitted, that it gave me, and so forth. So it's all saved in here as well, okay, as a student. So that's nice. So if they say, oh, you know what, I attached the wrong thing, then go back to the Google Drive and fix it as well. So it's all in one central location.